Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm your host, Jason Akin. In this week's episode, I'm going to be discussing The Doom That Came to Sarnath by H.P. Lovecraft. It's a fantasy tale that Lovecraft wrote on December 3rd, 1919, according to S.T. Yoshi. It was first published in the June 1920 issue of the Scot, which, according to Yoshi's introduction in H.P. Lovecraft, A Complete Fiction, was a Scottish amateur journal. Its first appearance in a pulp magazine was the March-April 1935 issue of Marvel Tales of Science and Fantasy. It would later appear in the June 1938 issue of Weird Tales. Now, this is a short story, but Lovecraft manages to pack in an impressive amount of detail into such a short piece. The story chronicles the rise and fall of the city of Sarnath, which is located on the shores of a vast, still lake in the land of Mnar. The story takes place roughly from 9081 BC to 8081 BC. The doom that came to Sarnath is often associated with Lovecraft's dream cycle, but I don't believe the story takes place in the Dreamlands. I think it's a fantasy tale set in a lost age, a la Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age and Clark Ashton Smith's Hyperborea. Now, that's not to say there isn't a Sarnath in the Dreamlands, but I believe the Sarnath mentioned in this story was on Earth. As I mentioned previously, Lovecraft put a lot of detail into this story, including backstory, architecture, and deities. And these deities I haven't encountered in his other mythos stories yet. The catalyst for the story occurs when humans come to settle along the shore of a vast lake in the land of Mnar. When they arrive, there is already a gray stone city there, inhabited by strange amphibious-looking people. The city is named Ib, and its inhabitants worship Bokrog, the great water lizard, who is personified in an idol made of green sea stone. The humans erect the city of Sarnath on a site rich in rare metals, not far from the city of Ib. The men of Sarnath are in wonder of the people of Ib, but at the same time, they are also uneasy about them, due to their appearance. The men of Sarnath also know the people of Ib are soft and are easily injured by their weapons. Eventually, the young men of Sarnath attack Ib, slaughter its people, and throw their bodies, as well as the stone blocks comprising their city, into the lake. The only object that is spared a watery grave is the green sea stone idol of Bokrog, which they take back to Sarnath as a trophy. The night the idol was placed in the temple at Sarnath, the high priest of Sarnath dies. However, before he dies, he shakily writes the word Doom on a nearby altar. The idol disappears afterwards. The story moves on from there, with Lovecraft chronicling the rise and eventual fall of Sarnath. It's a short story, only 6 pages, so I don't want to give too much away. I'll be sure to put links in the show notes on where you can read and listen to it for free. It's well worth the time if you're a fan of fantasy literature and weird fiction. There's some great stuff in this little gem. This and Polaris have come the closest to H.P. Lovecraft writing in the sword and sorcery genre that I've personally read. Lovecraft didn't develop the polar land of Lomar in Polaris as much as he did Sarnath in the greater lands of Mnar in this short story, though. And speaking of Mnar, We're never given the exact location of it, but as lions and elephants are mentioned, I have to assume it must take place somewhere in or around ancient Africa. I found this interesting due to a possible influence I felt while reading it. Now, I should be upfront and say I'm not familiar with the work of Lord Dunsany, so I really can't comment on that particular influence, although I've heard that mentioned in several different pieces. But I am a reader of H. Rider Haggard, and I felt a hint of his writing style in this tale in regards to the way Lovecraft described the architecture of Sarnath. It reminded me of how Haggard described the lost civilizations in his novels, such as King Solomon's Mines, She and Alan Quatermain. Take that with a grain of salt, though. I've been listening to Haggard audiobooks on Audible for the past 5 months, so perhaps that's just clouding my senses a bit. The Doom That Came to Sarnath reads a bit like, what if H. Rider Haggard wrote a weird tale, in my mind. This short story also has Pulp Crazy's highest recommendation, and I suggest you check out the show notes for the free downloads of The Doom That Came to Sarnath. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. Pulp Crazy is located at pulpcrazy.com. I'm at Pulp Crazy on Twitter, and facebook.com/pulpcrazy. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/pulpcrazy. You can also email me at pulpcrazy@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.